look at all of the hot topics in HR.
Whether it's passive talent or it's active talent.
That's a soft skill that really gets undersold in the hiring process.
How to manage in the virtual environment.
You get a diverse, cultured group of people. It's a win-win for everybody.
More conversion from candidate leads.
What does that look like in this new virtual world?
Welcome to Talent Experience Live. This is, as I like to say, the greatest show on the internet. I know it's a bold statement, but I'm going to keep saying it every week. This is your weekly look at the latest topics in HR, interviews with leaders in the industry, and my personal favorite, discussing what's new with HR tech. I'm your host, Tom Tate. I'm on the marketing team here at Phenom. Just want to give a shout out to all those who are joining us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook. Let us know in the comments that you're here with us. Let us know who you are, where you're tuning in from. You know, one of the coolest things about doing the show is we're able to engage with people from all across the globe, which is super exciting. So let us know where you're tuning in from, who you are, what you do. It's a great opportunity to network, find some of your peers, whether you're in recruitment, talent marketing, talent management. We have all different types of folks who tune in. So definitely join the chat. We'll keep it lively today. Want to give a shout out to our video producer, Justin Devitt. He's behind the scenes, pulling the strings, hitting all the buttons. He's always showing up, always delivering a great show. Shout out to our producers, Jen and Patry. They do the same. They do so much behind the scenes to make the show happen every week. And I really want to give a shout out to our sponsors. Just kidding. We don't have any sponsors. This show is proudly brought to you by our team here at Phenom. And our team at Phenom, our purpose is to help 1 billion people find the right job. It's not a typo. It's a true billion. We're well on our way. Super excited for our community members who help us continue that purpose. We have a talent experience platform called Phenom TXM, and it helps candidates find the right fit faster. It helps employees evolve in their current role and beyond, helps recruiters achieve some of that next level productivity and efficiency, and helps managers build better teams with data. If you want to learn more about any of that, head on over to phenom.com. You'll learn more and reach out to us if you want to talk. We're always happy to talk about talent experience. If you're just joining us, if this is your first time on Talent Experience Live, we go live every Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. Be sure to like, subscribe, get notified so that you never miss a beat. We've got some people tuning in from Nashville. We've got Danielle. Welcome, Danielle. We have Jen. Welcome, Jen. Super excited. Patrizia joining from South Jersey. I'm gonna ruin your name, Niharika. Hopefully I got that right. Joining from India. So we've got a global presence here. Super excited. Employer reputation lead in India. Very, very excited. Very excited to have you here. We're going to talk about an awesome topic today. We're talking all about your career sites. And we had a great webinar this week actually talking about this. Is your career site the best version of itself? We think about January, we think about New Year's resolutions and kind of how we can improve, how we can make ourselves better. It's a great opportunity to look at your career site and really make sure, is it the best version of itself? Is it doing the job that it needs to do, right? Your career site has a very specific job that it needs to do. Attracting, engaging, and converting job seekers. All three of these are critical components to a performing career site. And we have an amazing guest who's going to walk through kind of his journey in making sure that their career site was doing that job. But before we get into this, before we bring on our guest, we always like to start with a quick icebreaker. And today it's related to our guest, right? So I want to ask everyone, this is a very controversial question. What is your favorite variety of M&Ms? Very, very difficult question. There are so many, right? I did a quick history lesson. The M&M, everyone knows what the M&M is, right? The famous milk chocolate candy. It was actually introduced 80 years ago. So 80 years ago, the M&M was introduced, and it was based on hard-coated chocolates that Forrest Mars Sr. discovered during the Spanish Civil War. So it was chocolate that was prepared in such a way that it wouldn't melt in the warmer climates, right? So you could carry this chocolate around with you. I thought that was so fascinating. I wanted to share it. Hence the value prop of M&Ms, right? Melts in your mouth, not in your hand. There are so many different kinds: regular, mini, mega M&Ms, milk chocolate, dark chocolate, white chocolate, peanut. We got some answers coming in. We've got, David saying peanut, no doubt. Jen saying plain. Patrizia is saying regular M&Ms. Can't mess with the classic. Okay. Peanut, plain, brownie. Danielle says peanut is the correct answer, which is great. I really liked pretzel. That's one of my favorites. But I'm gonna go with regular M&Ms, but I'm gonna slight twist on that. The pastel colors, the variety of pastel colors that come out around Easter time, springtime. One of my favorite. I know it's the same recipe as original M&Ms, but they always tasted a little bit differently to me, right? With those fresh spring colors. Might be tinged with nostalgia there. So, all right, enough candy talk, enough of the candy talk. Let's shift gears to discussing one of the sweetest career sites I've ever seen. Let's bring on our guest for today, Alex Horner, who is the head of employer brand and talent sourcing for the Americas at Mars. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tom. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How has your New Year been so far?
Very busy so far. It feels like
Yeah.
the Christmas break was a distant memory, but yeah, it's good. Lots of good things we're working on.
Yeah, you said you've been traveling a little bit. So I can't let you not answer this icebreaker question because it seems to already be a hot topic in the chat. So I have to ask, do you have a favorite variety of M&Ms? And I'll let you even skip that. If there is a delicious Mars candy that trumps M&Ms for you, you can shout that out too.
Yeah, actually, my favorite Mars candy and favorite M&M variety is the caramel one. It's
Nice.
Slightly controversial because it doesn't seem to be everyone else's favorite, but it's mine for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, good to know. I've yet to try that one, so that's going to go on my list of things to pick up for my children, right? So I have to ask you, how did your journey start at Mars? How did you get started at Mars? And tell us a little bit about your current role.
Yeah, sure. So I've been with Mars for 5.5 years now, and I joined actually in the UK as a talent sourcer and employer branding specialist, and used to be on the agency side of things in the recruitment world, and Mars was one of my clients. And from the outside, I got really familiar with the business and started to really feel like it was a place I wanted to go and work. So one day I called up the team and said, hey, I'd love to come and work for you. And a job got posted about a week later, and I interviewed and got it. And thankfully I did, otherwise it would have been quite awkward. But here I am 5.5 years later. And yeah, I've worked now in a variety of different talent acquisition roles within employer branding, sourcing, full life cycle recruitment. And I'm now based out of Chicago, leading the Americas region for employer branding and sourcing.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's quite a chock full list of accomplishments there. So that's pretty awesome. And we're going to be talking about, kind of the work that you've done on your career site, with the team at Mars. And I'm curious because when we think about our career sites, they're constantly evolving, constantly changing, constantly keeping up with new trends, new technologies, but also with the brand, right? And I know that you've been involved in a pretty massive project or series of projects, right, at Mars to help evolve the brands and build out multiple career sites, not just one. So I was hoping we could just start diving into, what has been the scope of the projects that you've been involved with so far. And we can talk a little bit about, how did they get started and who was involved. But let's start with the scope. What was the scope of the rebrand project that you've worked on?
Yeah, sure. So if I take you back 3 years ago, Mars went through a full corporate rebrand. So, which we actually didn't have a corporate brand before. So we had an employer brand and we'd done it a bit back to front, but we didn't have the corporate brand. And then the corporate team wanted to do a full rebrand, which meant not only changing and updating our employer brand, but we took the opportunity back then to completely update our web properties. So both our corporate site and our career site at the same time. So the scope at the time was, we had to launch the career site in a very, very quick time. So I think we actually launched the first global career site it was about 6 or 7 weeks from start to finish, which was crazy fast. And then from there, we had subsequently 18 sites in 8 different languages, so which came later in the year. And we did that throughout 2019 and finished most of them off by the end of the year.
Super ambitious. We don't often see teams, try to tackle, such an insurmountable feat, right? That's pretty impressive. What teams were involved in kind of scoping out that project? It sounds like doing it alongside the corporate rebrands, you had to work pretty closely with cross-functional teams.
Yeah, so we had, so we had corporate affairs who were leading the corporate rebrand. We had our employer reputation community globally and our specialists in all of the various markets and regions around the world who took ownership for delivering their local sites. Plus, we then had digital technologies, Phenom, of course, and then at the very beginning, of course, all of the fun and games that you have with the procurement department to get everything signed off.
When you think about the before state of your career site, we think about, before it went through this transformation, and in just a bit, we're going to do a screen share and we're going to walk through how awesome the site ended up. What were some of the areas of the career site that you specifically really wanted to focus on improving when you had the opportunity to say, okay, we're doing the rebrand, we're introducing new technology? What were some of the areas that you really wanted to focus on making better?
Yeah, so pre going live with the career site, what we used to have is we had a corporate site which had a career section that had most of our evergreen content on there. Okay. So why work at Mars? What's great about the company? And then when you search for a job, you then went over to our ATS page, which had just a list of jobs. And it was honestly quite a disjarring experience because both of the sites didn't really look the same except for a handful of colors and logo. So the idea really by leveraging the new site was, yes, we were going to still have a corporate site, but we wanted to have a much richer experience for candidates, given that most of the traffic being driven to that site comes directly from a job board, like a LinkedIn or an Indeed. What we were finding is a lot of candidates were going into the old career site, which was just a job listing with no additional content. And there actually wasn't a very simple way to get to the corporate site, which had the careers content on there. So our aim was to, when candidates landed on the career site, they'd land into an environment where there was content available for them to find out about Mars. The experience was much more engaging. They could find out about what it's like to work there from our associates directly. And then also just the ability to apply was a smoother experience than what we had previously.
There's a lot of great visual storytelling that's happening on your career site, and we'll walk through some of that. And I think that super important, right? And also, personalization. I feel like you're doing a good job personalizing it. Part of it is personalizing it to your location, right? With the specific languages, the additional, you can call them tenants that have been spun up to really cater to different countries and different languages. And one of the things I've noticed too, and maybe you can talk a little bit about this, because I'm sure it was an intentional decision. It's not just translating all of the English content into different languages. When you go onto a different site that's catered to a different location, the site feels like a different site in some cases. So, I know you were involved in spinning up a lot of these additional sites and kind of developing these. What were those conversations like, in terms of deciding what types of content goes on different localized sites?
Yeah. So the idea was that we wanted to have freedom within a framework. So we wanted to have a certain level of governance globally so that most of the structures of the sites in the various tenants are similar, with some exceptions for different pages here and there. But really, we wanted the experience to be quite similar, but with enough flexibility built into it so that if you were coming on from the Middle East or from Latin America, the photography would be different. It wasn't just a complete translation of the American English site into the local language. It was local content within the same structure, which was relevant for the audience, because we've obviously found that that's made the experience for those people much more engaging. But we wanted to do it in a way that allowed enough flexibility so you could differentiate, but not so that it was becoming the wild, wild west and not being able to then control what people were doing. Because historically with our old site, that's what happened. It got out of control. There wasn't consistency. It was very hard to govern. Whereas now we built out a site map, which we felt was much more relevant. It was actually scaled back quite a lot. And the content that we put on there, we felt was at the time the right amount of content, and then enabled flexibility within that for markets. For example, if they had their own early talent programs, because all our programs vary around the world, they were able to have a page. Everybody had an early talent page if they had those programs, but they could put specific program information in there related to them locally.
Yeah, super important. And maybe this is a good question to ask because there are likely people who are going to view this who are either taking on a similar project or want to take on a similar project. It's true. When you go on these different sites, it still feels like you're on the Mars career site, even though the content's changing. So I can definitely see that the governance is in place. What types of artifacts did your team create to make sure that that was the case? Like how did you document this framework? Did you have like government's documentation?
Yeah.
Brand guidelines? What was important for you and your team to empower all these other teams to make sure that everything felt cohesive?
Yeah, so we absolutely have brand guidelines, which were for our employer brand. So everything from logos, color palettes,
Sure.
fonts, how to leverage it, and all of that good stuff. And then we also built an original sitemap too, which was very clear around what bits were flexible and what bits had to remain consistent to the global structure. Now, over the 3 years, naturally, that's evolved as we built the site out, and other markets have got different needs. But that's how we started off.
Yeah, no, super helpful. And the other thing I wanted to ask you before we just jumped in to the career site was around video. I noticed that many of your pages are really focusing on video to do a lot of the storytelling. Was that something that Mars always had in place, or was that something that the team really started to commit to as you began to roll out the rebrand and as you began to roll out some of these newer sites?
Yeah, I think as we started to do the rebrand, I mean, we had quite an intentional focus on video now for probably 4 years, I'd say, from a social media perspective. And then we wanted to make sure that the experience on the career site replicated what you saw externally on social media as well. So, and obviously the ability to tell stories through video is a lot more impactful than just through copy. So we wanted to leverage it in a way where, having a short video could probably tell the same story as having 2 or 3 pages of copy and photos. So we're trying to leverage it in a way which gives enough content, but doesn't overwhelm people.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, let's dive in. Let's take a look. So what I'll do is I'm going to pull up the site here. Hopefully everyone can see my screen. But here's the US site, right? And I think this is awesome. So photography wise, you're greeted with this awesome photograph. You're also greeted with familiar brands, very iconic familiar brands, which I think is really smart, and it's rotating. So it's going to capture your attention in a specific way. And I'm not going to toggle too much into the different sites, but as you do, and I'll just do one real fast, you start to see that the content is changing, right? And I think that that's helpful. Let me toggle back here. Okay, awesome. So like I mentioned, video at the forefront. As I go through, you have so much engaging content. I said earlier, visual storytelling. I just want to click through here because I think this is one of the coolest things that I've ever seen. Click English here. So who thought of this one? I don't know if you remember, the inception of this or how long it might have existed. Did this come alongside the rebrand, or was this something that began elsewhere?
Yeah, so this came a bit later, and this was led by our global team. It was an amazing awareness campaign that they did to try and really build out perspective of Mars. And the idea of this is obviously trying to give some perspective around the history of Mars, and also what are some of the opportunities we have within the business, showing a timeline, lots of different languages. And one of the really, really cool things about this campaign that was done was actually from an internal perspective is that, when you get to the end of the year and on Facebook, and it'll be like, hey, here's your year in review, and you can look back at Alex's year. Well, the team actually made an interactive video creator for our internal associates to use, where they can actually document their career history at Mars and some of their proudest accomplishments, and it would generate a small video that they could post on social.
Okay.
So it was all part of the same campaign. I think in the end, there was over 1,500 videos created internally on the creator and posted to social.
That's amazing. Awesome. That's super cool. Shout out in the chat if you've ever seen anything like this, because I certainly haven't. This is so cool. And our team was going through the years here and having such a blast, right? So this is super awesome and interactive. And when we use words like candidate experience, which is very commonplace, this is it. This is an experience that you rarely see. And it spills over to all of your pages. Why join Mars? You have so many great content pages. I think a lot of folks, when they think about the career site, they think it's just a portal to the jobs. It's just land on the job description page or land on the homepage, do a quick search and get to a job description. But there's so much more, I think, to creating a connection with candidates. and it's happening on your site. So, how much stock does your team put into creating content? Like it seems like you have a full content team that's just dedicated to creating blog content and landing pages. I'd love to just understand your structure of the team and kind of what goes into creating a lot of this awesome content.
Yeah. So we have a mixture of leveraging agencies externally to help us with things. So for example, the page you saw before with the moments in time was done by an agency because that involved, a relatively deep amount of coding to be able to create that. But actually a lot of the day-to-day maintenance of the websites sits with the employer branding teams themselves. So that's one of the benefits of the Phenom system actually is the CMS is very easy to use. So when it comes to changing, images, photos, videos, text, or even building landing pages, etc., you can do things very easily yourself. So that's what a lot of the team does, and then obviously we tap into the agencies to help us with some of the more complex bits as well.
Yeah, and I think in this day and age, that agility to be able to make changes on the fly has to happen. Like there are so many opportunities where you need to be working and functioning in real time. And you don't want to wait for a developer to have to make those custom changes. We have a couple comments coming in. Jonathan Dale writes in saying, awesome. And I can relate to so much of that. Connects me to Mars in areas I was not aware of. We did have one question coming from Aaron. Did you find an increase in time on page metrics, with these new additions and videos? And that kind of begs a greater question is, were you tracking a lot of specific benchmarks prior to the rebrand, and did you see any interesting trends or increases afterwards?
Yeah, so I'll answer both of those. So to your question, Tom, in terms of the metrics we did before and after, we actually saw a crazy shift in the apply click conversion ratio. So before pre-go live with Phenom, our visit to apply click conversion rate was around 7.5%. And then post go live with our new site, that shifted to anywhere between 25 and 30%. And actually in some of our markets, so for example, in Latin America, our conversion rate is as high as 40 to 50%, which is significantly higher than what it was before. Yeah. And then to Erin's question, so yeah, we did see an uptick in the amount of time. The reality is on the career site, the most viewed pages are still the jobs, the homepage, and the search results. But what this content does give is an opportunity for people to learn more if they want to, and it's there and ready available. One of our most viewed pages in terms of the length of time is actually our inclusion and diversity page, and that was a recent addition last year, at the beginning of last year, and that was probably one of the most the page that had the most time spent on it because there's a lot of rich content on it.
Yeah, let's just talk through it. So I'll scroll through. Is there anything on here that you're super proud of? Anything that the team put a lot of care and effort into? Like you said, there's a lot of great content here. And I'm assuming this was easy to build, using CMS. And if you want to make changes, you can just pop in and make them.
Exactly. Yeah, and this is another example of those pages that we have flexibility for the market. So this is at the moment, it's on our global site. And this is more of an overarching view of what we're doing from an I&D perspective at Mars. So lots of information about our goals, where we're trying to head as a business, and then some information about some of the stuff we're doing. But if you were to go into one of these pages on our local site, so for example in the US or into the Latin America site, you'll have specific information about the associate resource groups or employee resource groups. We call them associate resource groups that we have available to the individuals in the markets. And the idea was, we wanted to give potential candidates, a view into if they wanted to get involved in something, what could they get involved in? And if they were going to join in the US, for example, okay, what are those groups that are available for me to participate in?
We're constantly promoting and talking about, how important it is to have employees tell your story, versus just the brand constantly telling the story. And we're finding video such an awesome way to do that. So is this an element here of those video campaigns that your team has been able to run to start to collect some of this employee generated content?
Yeah, exactly that. So you actually see for most of those videos as well that you're going through that these are not super, in a studio shot videos. Most, some of them actually just shot on their laptops at home, and that's the reality that we faced, during COVID, but also just the shift that we've made. And even that video there, where actually, I'd encourage everyone to go and watch it because it's a really great video. But sure. Whilst there was quite a lot of editing involved with our agency, all the associates were actually shot at home, but they had very cheap green screen sent out to them and that they put behind them when they did the filming, and then we were able to then edit in transpose the colors in behind them afterwards to make it look as if it was like a really, highly professionally done shot, but actually it was done at home. So
yeah, I mean, there's so much you can do these days, and this is very authentic. I mean, this is authentic, raw employee stories that you're getting, and I think that our candidates really resonate with that. It doesn't always have to be that hyper produced, super produced video. So yeah, this is an awesome page, and you have more of these, right? Early talent, like these are all critical landing pages. And I mentioned we had a webinar earlier this week, and we were talking about how important these pages are for SEO too. Because now that these landing pages exist and they're content rich, content dense, they're likely to show up in search results. People who are searching for these particular topics. Have you noticed like organic traffic increase to any of these landing pages in your travels?
Yeah, we have. Yeah, I say holistically to the site, we've seen that increase. And then when we tend to run campaigns through seasons, so for example, for early talent, we tend to see a spike around the time we're doing our campaign as well. One of the other things we leverage the landing pages for is we actually have quite a few hidden landing pages so that you actually wouldn't be able to find through the typical navigation, where if we're going to do a campaign, for example, for manufacturing individuals, because we're opening up a new factory or we had to hire data scientists, we would tend to build out what is a hidden landing page where all of our social content and everything else we're doing is being directed straight into that page. And that page will typically have jobs, content related to that function in it, but it also starts to capture leads through the talent community as well. So
yeah, that's awesome. And I know that you create blog content as well, which I'm sure contributes to that discoverability. Are your teams creating localized blog content? Are you creating location specific articles as well?
We are, yeah, and we're in the process of rolling that out in a broader fashion. But for example, we're doing that in Brazil, and they've started to do that quite significantly over the last 6 months or so. And then obviously we've got it on the global site as well. So that's a nice example of where we allow flexibility. Like not everybody has to have the blog content, but if they have the scope and the bandwidth to do so, they can obviously then have that functionality added to it.
So I know, Talent Experience Live, we are just scratching the surface here, but there's such a robust strategy that's under the hood here. Is there any other areas of the career site you want me to pull up? Anything that you are super proud of or the team's super proud of that would be worth kind of discussing, showcasing?
If you go to the drop down the top right for global and go to the UK site, I'll just show another cool bit of functionality that we've leveraged to another third party as an integration.
Sure.
So if you go to talk to us at the top there on the navigation, we also partner with a company called Path Motion, who offer this platform, which is really cool for associate advocacy. So these are real associates that work at Mars, and anybody and the external world can come on and actually ask them a question. When they ask the question and the associate responds to them, it creates basically an ever-evolving FAQ that potential candidates can come and read when they're researching into Mars. And they can also answer with video now as well, which is cool. So it just gives even more rich content that candidates can go when they're making their decision around Mars. Because obviously, we know the candidate journey isn't typically linear. There's often lots of different touch points, whether it's within the career site or outside on social or Glassdoor or other places as well. So having some of this available to them so they can make the decision themselves is really valuable. Yeah,
this is awesome. And again, this is great content that you can then repurpose elsewhere. You can take some of these almost mini testimonials. I saw one question flash by, you've been at Mars for a long time. What made you stay? Like those are great questions to turn into mini campaigns, and you can create some of that employee generated content as well. Awesome. This is super cool. I'll flash back to the US site. Again, it's super easy to do this, just using this toggle here. So even if I ended up on the site that wasn't localized to my location, I can see all these different options. And again, I've rarely see career sites have this many language options. So I want to commend you and the team for really just spreading out your ability to connect with candidates and meet them where they are. It's fantastic. And again, with very contextual content. I know you've worked with the Phenom team a bit on personalization. I know, maybe a while back, you were experimenting with our audiences feature. Is there anything that you're thinking about in the future that you really want to do? You haven't implemented it yet, but stuff that you really want to do when it comes to personalization and really engaging candidates on an individual level?
Yeah. So the two new features that my team's actively exploring right now that we're looking into are the personalized job description pages. So right now we just have one job description page for everybody, and we're looking into whether we want to have specific pages for functions. So one for sales, for example, one for supply, where we can then start putting in content that's relevant for those audiences. And the other one, some of the personalization widgets, which we started to explore last year in our LATAM site as well, where in the back end of Phenom, you can upload a bunch of different pieces of content. Let's say you can add 10 associate testimonials and you can tag them with different tags. So sales, supply, engineering. And then based on then there's one widget that will then go into the Phenom site onto a page. And then based on basically the behavior of that candidate. So if they're looking at sales jobs, that widget will then personalize with the sales testimonials live, as they're searching, which is pretty awesome. So there's some more stuff we're looking to build out as we evolve the site.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm just kind of walking through some of this now. Super easy to do. Obviously, I'm on the East Coast. Yeah. This is awesome. I'm going to skip this. But yeah, there you go. Great to see, New Jersey, local, very, very contextual, to what I just entered, which is really exciting. And I could always reset and try again or edit my profile. So to be able to give your candidates this experience is great. And one of the things I noticed, you're not seeing it now, but when I first logged on, there was kind of like that NPS, style widget. How would you rank your experience out of 5 stars? How's your team leveraging that, the feedback that you get from that, to make different decisions across your career site?
Yeah, I think we're just using it as a validation tool right now. So
Sure.
Depending on what we're getting back, if we're getting loads of 1 stars, then we know we've got to do something about it. If we've got loads of 5 stars coming through, then we're probably pretty content with how it's looking. So regularly checking that to see how it's shifting over time.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. It's great to have the feedback loops. Jen had asked a question. Are you thinking about video job descriptions too? You have video throughout many of these content pages. Have you thought about or discussed having, maybe the hiring manager share video on specific job description pages?
Yeah. So yes, absolutely. We actually had at the beginning of the year, when we were aligning on our 2022 goals for employer branding in the region, that was one of the pilots that we want to try this year. So we just got to try and find a few hiring managers that are willing to do it.
Awesome.
We're going to try it.
We have another question here too. Unfortunately, I can't see who it's from. So I will just say anonymous LinkedIn user had asked, what platform are you using to collect the employee generated content?
Yeah. So we have a couple of different methods for this. So we have an associate advocacy network internally, where we've got a bunch of associates who have signed up to be what we call Mars Insiders. And they're part of various Teams channels. And we would often tap into them as a method to say, hey, could you please provide us some content for this campaign or that campaign? And then they'll share it through the Teams channel in real time, because obviously you can upload documents there. Sure. So that's one way of doing it. And then we also have a social media sharing tool as well called Sociable, which we leverage for sharing posts on social, and they can also submit it into there as well. And in that tool, we can then approve or obviously deny the content based on the review that we do to make sure we've got the governance in place.
That's awesome. Real quick, for all those who are tuning in, we have Alex with us from Mars, and we are talking all things career sites. We just did a quick tour of the Mars career sites. Super fantastic, very engaging experience. We've already had a lot of great questions, but if you have questions, I mean, we have the pro with us today. I mean, he's managed a lot of these high scoped projects and managed them successfully. We have a good question from David here too. Obviously this is something that, comes through on the recruitment side. Quite frequently, this question comes up. What have you done to manage potential bias in implementing the new platform? Has this been a part of your conversations? Is this something that your team is aware of?
Yeah, so back when we did it originally, we actually had teams internally in accessibility look through as well. So look to make sure that the platform was accessible for end users. And then we also, obviously I&D is a massive focus. So wanting to make sure that we're making it sure that we've got a true representation of the full workforce at Mars, which has been a shift that we've made over the last year or so after implementing the site. So one, to make sure obviously that we getting the right feeling on there, that we've got the total workforce representation, and then also that it's accessible to candidates who may or may not have any sort of visual or hearing impairment.
Awesome. Yeah, if anyone else has any questions, feel free to chime in. As we start to wrap things up, Alex, I do have one question for you. For all those who are in a similar position to the position that you were in 3 years ago, for all the talent marketing and employer branding professionals who are looking to take on kind of like the massive rebrand, massive kind of technical overhaul of their career site, what advice do you have, having now gone through it and gone through a couple of these iterations?
Yeah. So I would definitely keep it simple to begin with, because I think there's always a desire to hit the ground running with everything, all the bells and whistles from the get-go, and actually you can always add to it over time. So figure out what's the absolute must-haves that you want to get going live, and focus on getting them right really well, and then also let the data guide you. So when we first sat down to design our site, there was loads of requests coming in, like, oh, I have to have a page for this, or I have to have a page for that. And it was when we really sat down and looked at the data of historical, and then also it's been validated with our new site, and we looked at, okay, well, how much traffic is actually going to those pages, and is that potentially inhibiting the experience because it's too deep or it's too far down a rabbit hole for someone to find? You want to make sure that you're leveraging data that makes the best experience possible. So keep it simple. Think about the career site as any kind of consumer website, so an Amazon or anywhere where it's really easy to go in and just buy something with one click. Candidates expect the same now, so try and replicate an experience which is going to be simple and akin to the experiences they get on other sites in the commercial landscape. Yeah,
and you're seeing that on the Mars site now with personalization, the ability to save jobs, almost like a cart, like a shopping cart. You can add jobs to that, save jobs, creating the profile. It's all there. You see the parallels between those consumer sites. So awesome advice. Thank you so much, Alex. We are incredibly excited to, be partnering with you, and seeing this level of personalization and engagement on a career site really enthuses us, so thank you for all the amazing work that you're doing. It's great to see. Any final thoughts, on just building and managing career sites? Any final thoughts with our viewers today before we start to wrap things up?
Yeah, I would say, again, keep it simple when you're thinking about it. Try and make sure that you're giving a true representation of what your organization is like. Put yourself in the candidate's lens. What would actually be important for me when I'm looking for a job? What would actually entice me into applying to said company? And have fun with it. There's lots you've got so much scope that you can do with it, as you saw with some of the pages that we showed, that leverage it in a way that is different. Test and learn some things, and if they work, great. If they don't, no harm done.
Yeah, I love it. Awesome. Well, Alex, thank you so much. This has been amazing. Thanks for joining us on Talent Experience Live, showing off some of the work that you've done, sharing your experience, sharing some of your learnings along the way. Really appreciate it. And let's keep in touch. As the site continues to evolve, we'd love to keep the conversation going. And if you roll out anything amazing, we want you to come back on the show and show it off. And we'd love to talk about it. So thanks again. And hope you have an awesome continuation of your week. Have a great weekend. And we'll talk soon.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. Cheers,
Thank
Tom.
you. There you have it. We had an amazing opportunity to look at Mars's career sites, the ins and outs. Alex gave us so many actionable nuggets, or should I say nougats, right? So have fun with it, right? Follow the data, right? Make sure that you're looking at the data. Make sure that you're validating decisions with actual data. We really saw some interesting things that maybe folks aren't thinking about. Creating those hidden landing pages. It's a strategic move that you might not be thinking about, but there's a ton of value there. Personalization that goes beyond just having your English text translated in a different language. Like, we're talking about really going into localization here. So it's been fantastic to really catch a lot of this. So if you're just tuning in towards the end of it, I want to encourage you to watch the replay. Head on back and watch it, because there's so many interesting things that I think you can take back to your team and say, check out what Mars is doing. We need to be doing this, and if bandwidth is an issue, even Alex said, they're tapping into agencies. There's always an opportunity. Never feel like something's impossible. There's always a way to make the impossible possible. And they launched these under a tight deadline, tight time frame. So again, find the right partners, find the right team, and you can make this happen on your side too. So thank you so much for joining today. It's been a fantastic opportunity for me just to kind of walk through this with Alex. And we will catch you on the next one every 12 p.m. Noon Eastern on Thursdays. We're here, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook. Be sure to subscribe. If you're on YouTube, make sure you hit that notification bell. We want to make sure you never miss a beat. And I hope that you have a fantastic continuation of your week as well. Thanks for your time and attention. We'll catch you on the next one.